Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Mark is running the entire train system from California to New York today, GT, so it's just you and me, back fully bearded, and more importantly, back from State College. I think I saw 388,000 people tuned in on Friday night. That number keeps growing, which is awesome for the sport of wrestling. We all talk about different things that are actually growing wrestling. Let's just talk about the environment. I didn't get to go this year. I got to go last year. You went both years. Tell me what it was like and if there's any stark differences between the two venues.
Well, Penn State is an absolute amazing host for that event. The Bryce Jordan Arena is very much set up for, I don't necessarily know it's built for like an event like that, but it definitely felt like it was really, really just there for wrestling. Carver is always a great place to host an event. It's loud, it's ruckus. Penn State did the exact same thing. It was very loud. The fan base showed up. I believe it was like just about 16K as far as in venue attendance you had 388,000 is what the Big Ten's largest viewership of a wrestling meet ever.
Yeah.
So, it was just really cool. And then of course, I think that there was a very, very good crossover during the event. I believe the women's soccer team, the Big Ten champs, were recognized in between some matches. The football team that had just won the Rose Bowl was recognized, or some of the athletes from that team. Head football coach James Franklin was literally within 2 chairs of Kale the entire duel.
I thought he was going to throw a brick at one point.
Hey, he was that close, right?
He was that dude for sure. Yeah.
Within one chair away from him was Micah Parsons, who is a huge wrestling fan, right? So
he and Spencer Lee have a relationship from when they were kids. They were in kids wrestling together. And, Micah Parsons put out on Twitter, hey, who's trying to get me a ticket? David Taylor's like, I got you. Spencer's Lee, like, I got you. Micah's like, normally I'd roll with you, dog, but I'm going to roll this side. But it was also great. Obviously I pay attention to the commentary. I wrestled for Gibbons for a year in college. I know Shane. It was great that they had Micah Parsons on, because that's crossover. And that's how you get people that are Penn State fans, Dallas Cowboy fans, and, NFL fans. When he's talking about how great wrestling is, people are tuning in. We're going to dig into Penn State here, but I just want to start with one thing. What was the sound of that place when Vespa looked like he locked up a cradle on Spencer for a second? Well, clearly got the takedown, and looked like he was going to do to Spencer what Spencer's been doing to everybody else.
Of course, starting at 125, absolutely, it was a good way to start off, right? Fireworks out the gate with Spencer Lee and RBY. It gave you like that shiver of Nick Piccinini.
Yes.
It was quite literally almost the exact same setup. Literally goes out there, gets him, and everybody, regardless of Iowa or Penn State fan, they're like, oh my God. It was, and once again, it was just a little, it was a flash in the pan. It was a solid takedown, got it. Once again, locked it up, and we're like, oh my gosh, what happens here? So
the duel's over.
It was just once again, as people that were theorizing how the duel could play out, and nobody, Vegas, if you would have hit on that, what a nightmare it would have been for Vegas to have a Vespa pin Spencer Lee bet for $1, right?
Tired. Maybe
Oh yeah,
retired.
you could definitely retire. So
that's Powerball. I would have liked to have $10 on Penn State's 125 pounder getting the first takedown because you would have thought it was going to be Steen. I don't even know who Vespa is.
yeah,
He hasn't been starting. And yeah, but anyway, it's crazy. So we can walk through match by match. I think that's been analyzed to death. I think just some highlights. Levi Haynes wrestles, so he burns his red shirt. That's a big deal. And every other match actually went according to the rankings, except 65, where Kennedy beat Facundo. And if Facundo had not beaten Amin the week before, that wouldn't have been an upset because the week before, Kennedy was ranked above Facundo. So the rankings really won't change at all. Like when we go through the team rankings, I think Facundo was in that 7-8 line, so Penn State will drop a few points. Like he'll drop into that round of 12, round of 16 range when we look at it. Kennedy was in that round of 16 range. He might bump to round of 12, but that's only like a half a point, full point difference. So, and it's also interesting. And you coach, by the way, Grandview, great win over Kearney over the weekend, like 37-3, something like that. Clearly 9 out of 10 matches. But tournaments are different than duels. I mean, I think we've beat that drum to death. And so Penn State, maybe it was 6-4 in the duel, but they're still going to be like a 50-point favorite when we look at the rankings here in a minute. So anyway, I think one of the things that wrestling needs to think about, Big Ten needs to think about, and tell me if you agree, is having like a Friday night duel, feature duel, and a Saturday night feature duel. And then like a Sunday afternoon feature duel. Because, I mean, if they're showing now, like these certain teams get really big numbers, I feel like that's the way to go. I like the Friday night double headers, like what we have this weekend and what we had last weekend. So what are your thoughts on that as a guy that's really actually involved with, especially to the Nike angle, growing wrestling?
Well, I think that Friday night thing, like most everybody's either on their way to a tournament and like they're in the town where they all have it up on their like streaming devices, or they're watching it at a local restaurant or something like that. I think once again, if you're in prime time or if you're on the weekends and not necessarily like middle of the afternoon on Tuesday are they streaming duels, like I think that wrestling has been paying off pretty well for them, meaning the Big Ten Network and or Flow, with their streaming services for those type of events. But I think what we were talking about earlier with the crossover of, additional fan bases and not just the wrestling specific people that just love wrestling that will go to a gym and sit there for 17 hours a day and just like soak it in.
Yeah.
Is, the casual fan that like now all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm a big fan of Micah Parsons and now he's a big fan of Bo Nickel and, and Spencer
Jason
Lee and RB, all these guys. It's like, okay, well then that means more, right? And I think Micah also had like a wrestling background as well, so he has an appreciation for the sport. Also, just a small little shout out for RBY. He went on to and once again Barstool Sports and beat up on JJ from Jersey Jerry from Barstool Sports, but he was in attendance, which then that crossover for just the casual sports fan from Barstool brings up, another casual fan that, basically is either a fan of him, fan of the women's soccer team, the fan of the Penn State football team. All of a sudden they go into an environment like that, 16,000 plus rocking environment, they become fans.
Yeah, really well said. And speaking of RBY, Straight Out of Tucson is out on Flow. One of my favorite things about jumping over to USA Wrestling is when we were at track, we wouldn't even be allowed to talk about that. And when people are putting out good content, like I would hope that maybe once in a while somebody mentions what we're doing. But when somebody puts out good content, it's great to be able to talk about it. I watched it. I saw like Adam Fellers was like, after watching that, you can't help but root for that guy. Shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Actually big of him to say, like, maybe I misjudged this situation. People never admit they're wrong, especially in public. And I'm not saying he said he was wrong, but like, to quote Stephen Covey, looked at the world through a different lens. And I'll tell you this, like I told a person who has a son who's kind of spoiled. I said, make him watch this. I said, like I go, people talk about like wrestling's tough, and wrestling is tough, but I think for us, like that's just part of the process, right? Like if I want to get better, if I want to go fight again, I got to get back in shape. I got to get my tail kicked, got to go run, got to do like just normal, like you're nodding, like, yeah, of course, that's what you got to do. Growing up the way that kid grew up and going through what he went through, different situation. I don't want to ruin it for anybody because, it's kind of like some movie that's on Netflix. Like there's some line of demarcation where you're allowed to talk about it, but less than a week probably isn't it yet. But just an awesome documentary. So congrats to Flo and Bader and all those guys that put that together. Really well done. So let's talk about international wrestling. First thing, GT, the IOC, UWW, Russia is basically back. So this is all lined up so Russia can be in the Olympics, clearly. That's like, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to see this. I think, like the Gilmans and the JBs of the world, and I think they probably speak for those men and women at that level. They want to wrestle the best athletes, even if they're cheating or not. But they're probably going to be back. You can read through the whole ruling. Basically, you just got to dot some I's and cross some T's and not claim like you're a terrorist, more or less. Like it's just be a good person and, that kind of thing. And obviously, don't test positive. So, but two big tournaments overseas, the Urigan, the results are out, and there's some mild upsets over there. But again, we can sort of watch that shake out because it didn't matter until Russia was back anyway, really, for the most part. But the tournament in Croatia, and how do we pronounce this again?
Zagreb.
I would have said Zagreb. So Zagreb. Results there. I can just, I guess, read this from yesterday. Pantaleo and Nolf earned gold. This is all on the mat.com. So Pantaleo with the big win over Haji Aliyev, right, GT?
Yeah, Pantaleo has been ranked number one in the world before. So beating, Haji Aliyev, in that weight class is pretty, it's a non-Olympic weight, basically heading into, let's say, the Olympics. But like Pantaleo is kind of taking over, like, hey, this is my weight, and I'm going to be the guy here. I believe that probably Pantaleo will. I don't want to speak for him, but I would probably think that he would go 65. When it comes up here to try to make in the Olympic Games. But huge win. Haji Aliyev has been a giant for a very long time, and he's always a good measuring stick on whether or not you're able to beat a really, really talented wrestler.
I can speak for Pantaleo because he was on the pod about a year ago, and he said that's what he's doing. So you're 100% right that he's going down. You're 150% right about beating Haji Aliyev. McKenna took silver. Evan Henderson took bronze. Jason Nolf wins gold. Mark Hall and Zahid both win bronze. Yazdani Charati won gold there at that weight. Zane was fifth. DeShazer was eighth. And those were the results. Don't think we skipped the women, guys. The women have not. Those results, they just got their pairings announcement. So we'll cover that next week. Then we're recording this at 9 a.m. Central Time on the 2nd. So again, another article here. Snyder's going for gold. Colin Moore is going for gold. Moore defeated Aiello 6-6 on criteria. Chance Marsteller and Aiello are both going for bronze. Aaron Golston is going for bronze. Lauren Mason DNP'd. So that's your results for today. And I don't think we'll spend any time on the draws because we'll just talk about that tournament next week. But the ladies are and I would assume Greco is coming up afterwards. Like, I've been around this stuff not as long as you, but long enough to know they go men, women, men in order, and the host country gets to decide whether they begin or end with freestyle or Greco. So just in case people wonder how they come to those decisions, that much I picked up. So anyway, just one more sort of big dual meet result. The Northern Iowa Oklahoma State duel was interesting. Oklahoma State wins, but they really win because they got a pin at 165 from Sheets, who was losing. That was the difference in the match. Oklahoma State's got this hellacious schedule. Like last weekend, they went to Northern Iowa and Iowa State, lost that duel. This weekend, they wrestle Michigan and Mizzou on Friday, Sunday. And I had talked to John and Espo this spring because we're trying to get them in those college duels we're putting together. And they're like, we owe so many people away duels. And I guess that's just how the schedule works, that it just got crazy. So, I mean, they've got a pretty interesting sort of situation there. So let me get into both the rankings here. Stop sharing this or share a different tab. So again, want to thank Christian Thompson over at fantasygrade.com. If you guys, this is your first time joining us, let me get to these rankings here. Come on.
And as you were talking about kind of like Oklahoma State and their schedule, it's, it's hard because the Big 12 is so spread out as far as like geographically. I think also just with the Big 10, I think, most of those guys are kind of within that range, unless you're having to go to Rutgers to Nebraska. Like that's pretty far. But, for Oklahoma State, it's basically up in the middle of the corridor and then, basically towards the Rockies. So I think like, not that far away from Missouri is Oklahoma State, and Dallas isn't that far away from Okie State as well. So it's not necessarily too terribly difficult for travel and or buses, because I know that they got a nice, like Rockstar tour bus that they are able to utilize. So
yeah, they're custom that way. I'm gonna try this one more time and see if I can get this to work.
Do that. My kind of got a little bloody nose here, so give me 1 second. It's really cold up here in Iowa, which is awful.
Those happen to me all the time, so I get it.
1 second.
So, folks, while we're digging this up, we're going to also talk about the Penn State, Ohio State duel, make our picks, Michigan, Oklahoma State, Missouri, Oklahoma State, and also hopefully get into these rankings here momentarily. If not, we're just going to go to one of the sources and pull them up. So we're going to start getting after this. So at 125, no big changes this week. I think Arizona State has an interesting dilemma. From what I understand, they're going to start Courtney. But if Courtney or Figs won out, Figueroa would get a much better seat at Nationals. And Figueroa is also a freshman. Courtney's a senior. He's cut his teeth over there, paid his dues. So that's an interesting dilemma for them. And I think I'm going to make maybe the most obvious statement of the podcast. You want to be on the bottom half of the bracket of 125.
It's just, Nostradamus over here. Like,
I prefaced it with this. I'm not cutting edge news,
Hey, we'll probably get to this here a little bit later, but I got a good old one that I use all the time. But when it comes to, I would say your strategy as far as like when we talk about bracketing and like where you want to be and whatever, like all that kind of stuff, every year at the national tournament, either like a 1 or a 2 goes down, or some three like basically gets hurt, or they've had they got beat up at Big Tens, and it's like, well, that you can just see like kind of the writing on the wall that they're having a good season, but then the wheels are falling off.
Yeah.
Right. As much as like Spencer Lee is like a man on a mission and just being a monster, like man's wrestled with two legs that don't work, and injuries can happen to anybody at any given time, not to like jinx anything, but we've had guys where it was like, hey, we just know that he's playing with a smaller deck than everybody else, and like, but what I'm probably, this is going to be the most obvious thing is it like, if you've watched Spencer Lee wrestle in the past, I don't know, month, that man is built different. He is on a tear, and he is basically just beat up everybody in his wake. It, to your point, to like double down on it, absolutely, I would want to be on the other side of the bracket against Spencer Lee. Even with all of that stuff that he's had to deal with in the past, he looks like a man possessed.
It's a different level now, man. Like after the Iowa State duel, like Ostrainer and I were talking, I'm like, man, like this doesn't look good for Iowa, because like all you got to do, which is an easy I go, I would run for 3 minutes. Like, I don't care if I get Stalling 1-1-2, like almost out. Like, let's just see him breathe in the second period. Now it's like, A, you can't run, and B, you can't hide, and C, it's a disaster once he grabs you. So, so 33, the big changes here were Philippi beat Latona in the duel, won on 9 seconds of riding time. Mendez beat Ragusin on the duel. So the nice thing about looking at Flo's version is you can see where they had him last week, so you can see the flip-flops there, or the moves. Dominic Zacone from Campbell moves into the rankings. 41, so Moses Schwartz, big mover here, goes up after beating Cale Happel. It's good for OU because they don't have anybody ranked in the top 8 besides him. Real Woods, I actually am more encouraged and I'm not like rooting for anyone, but if I'm rooting for Real Woods, I'm more encouraged because he beat Hardy and he beat Swiderski without getting a takedown and losing takedowns. He won the takedown battle with Bartlett. He's so good on top. I still think the formula is you pick neutral, you cut him loose, and you got to get one takedown in 7 minutes. Probably the other thing here that's worth discussing is that Swiderski lost to Carter Young. Carter Young's got some wonky losses this year too, so it just kind of screwed everything up. At 49, my internet must be super slow. Here we go, Yanni. So Murin moves up. Pinheiro lost on Friday night, so he drops. And again, I think now he's ranked where he should be. They didn't have him ranked high. So Gomez got hurt, GT.
Yeah.
Against Yaya. And listen, like, again, I don't root for or against anybody, but I root for people to be healthy. So I really hope he's healthy at the end of the year. He's like the guy, if you had to pick one guy that could beat Yanni, that's the guy you pick because he did it. So, Again, Yanni's starting to look a little bit like Spencer, like, okay, kind of got a bad match out of the way. Obviously Spencer's bad match was beating a backup by 10 and Yanni lost, but still kind of like get 2 off the first tee, had his mulligan, and now he's back to it. So, that's interesting. I thought, I'm super high on Van Ness, long-term, how good he's going to be, but Murin controlled that match. Like, you got to fist fight Murin. Like, you can't just slick him. Like, you either got to be super slick or be willing to bring your lunch pail and go to work, because he's not that guy that, you're just going to be able to just like, super duck him or something.
Yeah, I think, we talked about like kind of this, this COVID year still kind of playing a factor in, like having somebody like Murin be around for, I don't know, his 18th graduate year of college. And
yeah,
that man's wrestled in some very big matches on some very big stages. And, once again, wrestling somebody like Van Ness, who has everything on the trajectory of how Penn State develops their athletes. Yeah, I mean, once again, you're going to have to, bring a lunch pail when you have to beat like a 6-year senior and you're a freshman in the lineup. But once again, very tactical battle in that duel against Penn State versus Iowa.
Yeah, 57. We talked about this last week. Not a lot of changes, but super senior heavyweight. Rob's not a senior. Andonian and Scott are not seniors. Seabrick's not a senior, and Levi Haynes. But 8 of the top 12 are seniors. So like a Ja'Cory Teamer is going to be ranked super high here next year coming in. 65. So Caliendo moves way up after a big win. So they made the decision just to move Kennedy above Facundo. The other goofy match was Amin pinned Karchla, but they were tied, GT. They were tied in overtime, and Karchla just tried listen, Carson Karchla is a better wrestler than I was. So let me not be that guy that's, I don't know why I did, but he made a poor decision on a not properly executed Granby roll and got caught on his back and got pinned out of it. And it made that duel really kind of close. So but again, so now Karchel's at 10, but man, is that dude a dangerous 10? Again, if you had to pick a 10 seed, he might be the guy to pick of all of them.
Well, and with this weight class being so top and dominant heavy, once again, when we're talking about hey, trying to go from 3 to 4 or 4 to 3, you want to be on whatever side of the bracket, it's like chiseling granite. These guys don't lose to each other.
The top 4, the top 4 are really good, right?
Right. And you're looking at, Cam and then that match with Karchla, Julian Ramirez has been in the top 10. Tanner Cook had some really good wins already this year. I mean, this weight class is just berserko.
Don't shoot head outside on Tanner Cook. There's a scouting report for you.
Yeah. Hey, any Division I coaches, hey, don't
free
do
tips. Free tips. Go to my YouTube channel.
Right.
So it's funny. I think I'm jinxing people this year because at the Hall of Fame duels, 10 minutes before it happened, I told the guys down there, I'm like, I think at this point, Aaron Brooks is the biggest lock to win nationals. And then he gets beat by Marcus Coleman. I think I told Mark or somebody else, maybe Keck, hey, everybody's sleeping on Edmund Ruth. He's undefeated. He hasn't wrestled anybody above him yet. And then he loses to Bailey O'Reilly. But I still think Edmund Ruth is really good. So that's the change there. You see Bailey O'Reilly jump up. And to me, I would have done the same thing. I wouldn't have met him in the middle because Ruth had been undefeated. Demetrius Romero falls after a loss to Sam Wolf. Other than that, not a lot of change there. At 84, because I want to get to these picks. Mark, go ahead.
Also, just at that weight class, just a little shout out to Nelson Brands. Basically losing 3-2 to Labs, and then I think it was 2-1 to Starachi, and they got him at the 16, right? It's just because I think as we look at the total of the entire ranking system, once again, if he hasn't wrestled anybody quite yet, that's a big call out to be hey, you're still losing, but they're really close matches to those extremely talented, top 1, top 2 guys.
That's one of the hardest things in rankings, GT, is what to do with good losses, right? Because at the end of the day, a loss is a loss, right?
Right.
And, but we talked about the Karchla loss, right? If you just go Cam Amin pin Karchla, oh, the guy's a lot better. You know what I mean? Right? That's what you would know. Well, it was 0-0. Or 1-1, and no one had any riding time to speak of, and then they went to the ride outs and he just made a bad decision. Or like you said, 2-1. Now I'll tell you this. There was something wrong with Carter Sirachi. There was wrong frame of mind, not good health, bad weight cut, because that will not be a 2-1 match at nationals. I just bet my life on that.
No, for sure. And I think to your point, as we're talking about kind of these heading into nationals and your seeding meetings and kind of doing all of the tactical positions that we basically take, very seriously on the pod is, hey man, if you're in the Big 10, Big 12, even the ACC, Pac-12, whatever conference that you are, and all of a sudden you're wrestling everybody in the top 5 or the top 8 every week, and you have a 500 record, you got to take it, like, look at some of that stuff. It's like, well, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
You're at 165 and you wrestled Griffith twice, you've wrestled Carr twice, you wrestled Monday at the Midlands finals, and you wrestled Cam Amin once and you lost on a bad overtime thing. And it's like, well, right there, that's 7-8 losses. And like, you're not getting any dubs, but they're all close, good matches with really tough competition. So you could be like 8-8 heading into 12. Like, well,
Anthony Valencia had that a couple years ago where he had to wrestle like Evan Wick and Griffith, and there was some, like, he had like 4 just murderers row. And I go, we were talking, I go, if he goes undefeated through that, like, they just give him the trophy now. Like we're only gonna wrestle 9 matches, 9 weights at nationals. So anyway, 184, not a lot of change here. Hunter Bolin got pinned by Reese Heller. And so I had done the pit duel the week before with Virginia, and that Heller kid's pretty good. He's a transfer from Hofstra. Bolin was in a crab, and he did that reach back, but he swam his hips. I mean, it wasn't like that neutral fall where you're like, well, maybe, like, A, he was pinned in the neutral fall and they didn't call it. And then B, flipped over and had control, and before they could even count back points. So it was a legit win. So they just dropped Bolin a couple spots. That's always a tricky one. So that's what they did here. 97.
Big shout out to Pitt for the first time since I think Gavin and Headley were on the team to go into Blacksburg and get a dub.
Yes. So we can talk about that. So I'm calling the UVA duel against NC State tomorrow night. NC State lost to VTech. VTech lost to Pitt. Guess who Pat Popolizio wants to be? Like, if they beat Pitt, it's a 3-way tie. I don't know how they figure that out, or if it's like tri-champions of the conference, but it's up for grabs. Like, that was the best thing that could happen for NC State. It was the worst thing that could happen for Virginia Tech. If you're Pitt, you hold your destiny in your own hands. Pitt may have a better tournament team than NC State. NC State may have a little bit better dual meet team because Pitt's got, I think, 4 guys in the top 6. But they also got a couple guys unranked. And they had a huge win against VTech when Camacho just like went out and just neck wrenched Cooper Flynn, I think it was. But it was Flynn or Van Treska in like a minute, like he was double parked or something. So 97, no big changes. Heavyweight, no big changes. So go to team scores. So this is that tier we're talking about. Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, Cornell are kind of in that tier 2. And then that in that 40s tier is Iowa State, VTech, NC State, Ohio State, Michigan. And a bunch of those guys have multiple dudes that are seeded or ranked or whatever to be in the round of 12. And like, do you win that match, right? Like, we've all coached in it and been in it. Like, you're the better guy, but you lose in the quarters. I'm not as good, but I'm coming off a win. How's it go? Right? Like, it's all, every coach says we got to get the next best thing, clearly. But there's also a bunch of us that thought we were going to win nationals, and you get your heart broke on a bad call and a 2-second riding time thing. And now you got to bounce back for something that honestly you don't care about that much, which is taking third, so I feel like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are going to get decided on the backside of these brackets. Like, and I'm lucky enough that USA Wrestling allows me to interview a bunch of those kids after they win that blood round, and they're quick interviews because then they got to go cut weight. I will say this, pretty obvious statement. This is the second most obvious statement I'll say. Best weight cut of the year. Right? But I mean, you guys do it at Grandview. The kids have got to make weight that second day. Best weight cut of the year, right?
Yeah, and I will follow you with one of my good statements and just John Madden the crap out of this. Is like, hey man, if you score more points than the other guy, you're going to be real successful. And if you come back and get third, is you win the national title getting third.
Yeah.
Like everybody's sitting there, you're destroyed. Your goals for the entire year have vanished, but you go back and get the next best thing. And the way that, if you look back at some of the like historic runs of those really good teams, like the Okie State early 2000 teams, the Iowa teams in the 80s, the Penn State group as of late. Hey man, if you lose, which Cale doesn't really lose in the semis and or finals, it's very, very rare. It's like in the 90 percentile. If they get to that match, like they're really good. But when Iowa back in the day was winning it, if you weren't in the finals, you're getting third or fourth, or you're getting into that match, and like you burn up all of those points on the backside, and you just do it for the team. You do it for the guys that are, that you're training with all the time, even though you're hurting and you're like, hey man, like you just got to go on. But to your point, that happiest weight cut is, yeah, man, I'm there. Now work's not done, but I got to go get this weight off.
One of the things I asked Pat Popolizio, and it was not a verbal answer, but the face should be a meme. As I said, what would have happened if Sean Foss would have All-American his senior year and had to make weight that last day?
Oh my gosh.
And his face.
Yeah.
It's like, oh snap. Okay, let's make some picks. I'm trying to see if I can get this fantasy grade site up because I want to do this comparison. What is going on here? I texted the CEO. All right.
Another thing that, well, as we're kind of getting that all popped up or whatever, be sure to, tune into the Zagreb finals. It'll be streaming, I believe, here in, let's say, like maybe 2-3 hours. I don't know exactly on the times changed. I apologize for that, but
3 a.m. is what I saw. Yeah.
Oh, for opening rounds. Yeah. So I think then finals will start here. I can definitely do that. Well,
by the way, we're just going to start these picks, but I saw the funniest thing I've seen all day, GT. Saran Francisco lost to a guy named Georgi Ivanov at 125 kgs.
Is he from Bulgaria? Because if so, then we can call up our boy and be like, hey man, I see that you're out there wrestling again.
At 125. Like Georgie's still in good shape, so that didn't happen. Okay.
Exactly.
So, all right. Mark, so guys, if you guys see Mark Ostrander, you need to give him trouble. So he said this morning he couldn't be on the train, he had to be on the train, couldn't do the pod. So I said, hey, text me your picks. Or I said, send us your picks. So instead of just sending me an email, this man sends me 20 separate text messages. So like you would think like the IRS is knocking on the door, like, are you there now? Are you there now? How about now? Need the money now. It was like the Brian Stewie thing from Family Guy.
Right,
okay.
Exactly.
You got my money? It's okay.
Yeah.
We're going to do these picks. So we're going to start with Penn State, Ohio State. There's 3 great duels. You're going to Michigan, Oklahoma State, which we'll talk about. So Penn State, Ohio State, it'll be Heinzelman against either Vespa or Steen. Who you got, GT?
Yep. Taking Heinzelman.
Major, anything?
Just regular decision.
Okay. If it's Heinzelman, I'm going major. Okay. 33, and Mark had Heinzelman. 33. I'll tell you what Mark had first. That's easier. Mark's got RBY by decision over Mendez. I will agree. Anything different for you?
Nope.
41. Mark's got Ohio State over Bartlett. That's interesting. So let me make sure I got that right. Maybe I wrote it down wrong. Who do you have?
Taking Bo Bartlett for decision.
Yeah, let me just double check. I got it. No, he put down Ohio State. Maybe he typed it wrong, but wait a minute. Yeah, he put Ohio State. He spelled it out. All right. I'm going Bartlett too. Okay, 49 is Van Ness and Sasso. He's got Sasso by decision. I got Sasso by decision.
I'm taking Van Ness by decision.
Woo! Okay. 157. He has Levi Haynes by decision. Who you got here?
Have they been wrestling? Is it Gallagher?
Yeah, Patty Gallagher.
I'll take Gallagher by decision.
Okay. I'm going to go with you on that, just so like somehow we have a difference. 65, he's got Karchla over Facundo. Well, who you got?
I'm going to take Facundo.
Wow.
I think it's been a tough week for Karchla.
I'm going to say Karchla. Yeah. 74, he's got Starachi over Romero. I will agree.
Yeah, I'll take that.
84, he's got Brooks over Ethan Smith. I will agree.
I'll take that as well.
97, he's got Max Dean over Hoffman.
Yeah, I'll take Dean over Hoffman as well, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what people think.
Okay, I'm going to go Major. I think he's going to bow and arrow him. So, and then heavyweight, he's got Kirkfleet by Major over Orndorff. I think
I'm going fall Kirkfleet.
Ooh, okay. So Mark's got it 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 12 for Ohio State. He's got 19 for Penn State. I've got Ohio State with 1, 2, 3, 4 wins, but with 1 bonus. I got Penn State. So I got it 19-13. You've got Ohio State winning 1, 2. You only got Ohio State winning 2 matches. And you got Penn State with you got a 27-6. Wow. Wow. Okay. So Bout in the Ballpark is back. We haven't talked a lot about that. I got to go last year. That was Michigan, Oklahoma State. They do it at the baseball stadium in Arlington. I can't think of the name of the field now. You probably know the name of it. But if not, we got so this is an interesting duel because Michigan doesn't match up great with Oklahoma State. Like Oklahoma State can win some matches here that you maybe wouldn't think they would. So let me see. Let me put down who Mark's got. He's got Michigan and he's got OSU, Michigan. $65, he's got Michigan. 74, Oklahoma, Michigan, Oklahoma State, Michigan +3. Okay. So 25. So heard from a pretty reliable source, Mastro's out for the year. Can't make weight anymore. So they're either going to wrestle Blankenship and eventually they're going to wrestle Reese Whitcraft, the Broken Arrow kid who wrestled there a couple of years ago. So this is, I believe this is probably Michigan's the favorite here, right? With Medley.
Yeah.
You got Medley by decision?
Yeah.
Me too. Okay, 33, Ragusin, Fix. I'll take Fix by decision.
I'll take Fix by major.
Okay. 41, so Matten, Carter Young. So interesting match because Carter Young's a guy that's got like wide bandwidth, right? Like he's lost some terrible matches and he's won some good matches. He's coming off being Big 12 Wrestler of the Week. Mark's got Carter Young. Who do you got?
I'm going to take Carter Young as well.
All right. I'm going to take Matten. All right, 49. So Oklahoma State's got Voinovich. Michigan, I don't think is ranked at this weight.
I don't think so either. Actually, it's Lamer.
Yeah, so they're not ranked.
Yeah.
So he's got Victor V by decision.
I'll take Michigan by decision.
Okay. 57, that's Will Lewan and Gefeller.
Good heavens. You get like when you talk about Gefeller, like he's also one of those guys that has a wide breadth of like wins and losses. Like he can do really cool things and then he can also just lose to someone that is like a head scratcher.
Yes.
I will take Michigan by decision.
I will take Lewan 3-2. I think he just slows it down. Okay, Cam Amin, Wyatt Sheets, both coming off big wins. Both coming off falls.
Yeah.
Sheets actually lost fairly close to David Carr on Sunday. So coming off a good weekend, a big win and a good loss. We talk about good losses. So he's got Amin by decision.
I'll take Amin by decision as well, but I totally agree that Sheets he's wrestling extremely well right now, other than like kind of pulling it out there at Cedar Falls.
Yeah, I agree. So 74 plot, and I think is it Max Maylor at 74 for Michigan?
1 second.
Anyway, he's got plot by decision. I'll take plot by decision as well.
Yeah, I'll take plot. I'm gonna go plot major.
Okay. 84. He's got Michigan by decision. So that's now Whitlake didn't wrestle.
Yep.
So they wrestled Stitka, who actually did a good job, like not getting tech falled by Keckheisen, and like, I mean, it wouldn't have changed the duel, but it would have been a 1-point duel instead of a 2-point duel. So he's got Michigan by decision here. He's at okay. 90. You got Michigan as well?
Yeah.
So 97 is Serber. I think he wins by decision. And then he's got Mason Paris with the fall. So you have Serber, and then if so, and then who do you have with the Paris match?
Yeah, I'll take Serber, and then I'll take Mason Paris by fall as well.
I will too. He is leading. Him and Hendrickson are leading the NCAA in falls this year. So you've got Michigan winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matches and a fall. So that's 21. You got Oklahoma State winning 1, 2, 3, 4 with 2 bonus, 21-14. Michigan. I've got it. Michigan winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same thing, 21. I've just got decision, so 21-12. Mark's got Michigan winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but with a pin. He's got it 18-15. So I think if Mark is right, it's 15-12 Oklahoma State going into heavyweight. So, then they've got an interesting decision at Oklahoma State. Do you wrestle Doucette? Do you wrestle Kyle Haas? They wrestled Haas to try to slow down Sam Schuyler, and it didn't work because he's an 84-pounder. Like, he lost in the wrestle off to Whitlake in riding on in overtime. So I did not ask Mark for these picks, but let's pick Mizzou, Oklahoma State. Okay, we'll do that real quick. So that is certain against either, like we said, Blankenship. Probably Blankenship. So
I'm going to take certain by a decision.
I'll take him by a major. Okay. 33, Fix Connor Brown.
Fix decision.
Okay, I agree. 41, Allen Hart, Carter Young.
Ooh.
I'll take Carter Young or Allen Hart.
I'll take Carter. Okay. Just to I'll have him have a good weekend. How about that?
Just here for all of it.
Yeah.
Okay. 49 is Victor V and Mahler.
Mahler, decision.
57 is JQs and Gefeller. Really good match. Like number 7, 8, 9 versus number 10, 11, 12.
I'll say G Feller at decision.
I think JQs is going to win. 65 is Sheets against Keegan O'Cradles. So I'll go O'Cradles by major.
I'll take O'Toole with a fall.
Not a bad pick. 74, this was the Big 12 final last year. Plot against Peyton Mako.
Taking Plot.
Me too, but I think it'll be a good match. 84, again, it depends if it's Stitka or Whitlake. Like if it's Whitlake, I'll pick Whitlake over Hawks or Harmon or whoever they're wrestling there. But if it's Stitka, I'm going to pick Mizzou. So I think we're allowed to. Like I would
take that exact same scenario. I think that's the best. I think that's the best way to play it. You just can't.
Because I think the Mizzou guys are in between those two. So I think that's a fair pick. 97 is Serber Rocky.
I'm gonna say Rocky with a major.
I will take Rocky with decision. And then heavyweight is Zach Elam and probably Doucette.
I'll take Zach Elam.
Yeah,
regular decision.
You have Oklahoma State winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 matches. We'll just say it that way. I think that's the easiest way to say it. So Missouri winning 5.5 with 4 bonus points. I've got Missouri winning. Well, Oklahoma State winning 1, 2, 2.5 matches. Geesh. Okay, and Missouri getting 2 bonus points. So if you are a fan of close matches, you're rooting for GT's picks. If you live in Missouri, you're rooting for my picks. So I'll tell you, the duel in the Big 12 to watch is Mizzou, Iowa State. Like that's going to be
a great one.
Well, you get Carr O'Toole, you get Bastida Elam. Those are the
Johnson Muller.
Yes, those are the 3 banger matches right there where you're like, man, like Mizzou wins 25 there. But there's some other, heavyweight's close. Skylar and Zach Elam are close. Zach Elam usually wins, but that's usually a 1 takedown match kind of thing. Like Coleman will be favored at 84 kind of thing. So, Jake Hughes will be favored over Kreiser, but like just tons of good matches there. So when do you leave for Texas?
Literally going to pack up my computer after this and peel out.
Safe travels. Go get it. For Mark, whose picks, even if they were right, we will change them later off air, so he's wrong. And Grant, I'm David. Thank you guys for watching and listening. See you all next week.